Ora bem, vamos continuar aqui com o quarto episódio do COMPUTEX 2025, taipei, é o resumo, já vamos no quarto resumo, portanto eu tenho deixado sempre para fazer isto por tópicos, só que é complicado, mas acho que agora já deve dar. Hoje vamos trazer aqui vídeos do TQS City, Hardware Unbox, Gamers Nexus, Antec, Cooler Master, Debauer e Lian Li. Parece-me que são estes. E vamos focar mais nos IOs, coolers. Acho que será mais ou menos isso que vamos ter aqui. Ok? Então, sem mais longas, vamos então ver aqui, vamos começar. Acho que já está tudo on. Tá. Ok. Vamos aqui começar no Hardware Unbox. Depois vejam o vídeo dele. Eu dou sempre essa informação. Vamos abrir aqui.
Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today I find myself at the Trikes booth and we will be checking out some interesting looking cases.
Esta caixa, por exemplo, já tinha mostrado num outro vídeo, mas vamos ver.
Interesting looking coolers and some very impressive RGB fan software, which I never thought I would say, but yeah, we're going to get into all of that stuff right now. The Hardware Unboxed
vai trazer aí passar à frente. Isto é publicidade. Vejam depois o vídeo dele. Os IOs vêm agora com esta brincadeira. Para mim, acho que isto vai encarecer muito os IOs.
The screen quality is amazing. It has received a small update. This one now has a single magnetic power connector for the fans. There's not multiple connectors hanging off the fans. Bit of a simplified process.
Não é meu forte. O que me interessa era a qualidade do IO. Isso era o que me interessava, era a qualidade. Ok. Eu acho que muitas destas marcas não irão chegar ao mercado europeu. Isto é mais asiático.
Nice, more cost-effective version. We have the black version in one of our test systems back in the office. Really love it, but there is also a white version, and so you can rotate the screen, which I think we've shown in some of our B-roll in the past. But anyway, Panorama SE, but we'll go look at some stuff we haven't seen before.
A coisa começou a focar nisto, agora é nesta porcaria. Enfim.
But he's hurt his neck, so he's moving very robotic-like, so I won't make him do that. It'd be a bit awkward on camera. He's given us the thumbs up. But, so, we have a few things here that I haven't played with. First of all, there's the canal software, which I'll talk about a bit in a moment. Balin tells me this works very well, very impressive, and I've had a quick demo of it, and I'm still wrapping my head around it. It seems to work very well. So, the other thing we have is the Lucius fans, new ARGB fans, I suppose, 120mm. It seems to be that they come in 3 packs. They have like a light bar up the side.
Também apostaram muito em estas fãs com os RGBs. Moda agora. Este é o tal software, canal, vai controlar as ventoinhas, mas mais dedicado aos RGBs, okay? Porque para isso não é preciso nada disto. Já sabem aquilo que eu vos mostrei, que é que o programazinho, que é nível gestão, está aqui, ok? Fan Control. Mas o Fan Control não mexe com as cores.
Now, typically, in my experience with these RGB fans, they look good. They do the rainbow effect and stuff, and you can make them static or whatever. I've got a bit of experience playing with the Corsair IQ stuff. It works reasonably well, but I always get frustrated by the limitations of the software, especially when we're filming videos. You can't necessarily get the effects you want. They seem a bit limited, and the software can be a bit clunky, a bit laggy, a bit slow. But using this Canali software, I found it very quick and very powerful. Balin has a lot more experience with it. He spent hours setting up.
Vamos ver o que é que ele ocupa depois em termos de memória a trabalhar.
look at it. There'll be reviews and things you can check out that'll go into detail. It is quite powerful RGB software. I can't believe I'm saying that, but you can create like a new scheme. So it's kind of like a timeline, really. It's kind of like Adobe Premiere for RGB. It's quite crazy. It's like feels like you're making a video, but you can program each light in the sequence of lights and make it do something. You can really program the effects and create an entire timeline. So you're not just clicking like raindrop or breathing. You can actually make those effects or combine them. It's kind of like a video series of RGB effects. So heaps of colors and things to choose.
Estética, mais nada estética.
Your imagination on this one. You can also create very cool themes and share them with other people in the Canali community. You can download. If someone spends, I don't know how much time, but a lot of time customizing to create like the coolest looking effect, you can actually download their profile, load it into your software, and there you go. You've got this amazing looking RGB effect with very little effort. So I'm certain Balin's gonna have a lot of fun and probably spend way too much time tinkering with this, and not just his computer, but also the systems we have for B-roll. So yeah, very impressive.
Quantos FPS traz? Isso é que é preciso saber.
Now we have a very unique, very different product here from Trix. It's simply called Stage.
Isto é moda agora, é este.
Now,
Okay.
informed that people like figurines and they like to put them in their computer cases. This is a growing trend.
É, trend.
I like
Não é para mim.
my girls with extremely large rabbit ears. I put them in my computer. I would do it like that, for example.
Estética.
That is very pleasing to me. So if you like doing that as well, you can now buy the Stage. It has a 4-inch screen. I think
Meu
it's
Deus. É,
so not quite.
nem sei o que é que diga. Eles, vendo o mercado, eles estão aí, não é? É a obrigação deles, não é óbvio.
Two-sided screen, essentially 4 inches in total dimensions, and the Stage part is a mirror, so it reflects the screen to give you this really cool, well, it is three-dimensional look.
Agora a questão é
And
tamanho da caixa.
that one's not going to stand up for me. I don't want to break it.
Deixa-me alterar aqui.
Slid a little bit, but yeah. So that's the Stage. Pretty cool concept. Obviously very unique. If it's not for you, there are other ones like the panorama that we've talked about. I mean, look, check out the quality of the screen on the panorama. It's pretty impressive. We've sort of made fun of the LCD screen on AI.
E que isto vai ocupar muito espaço, não esquecer desse pormenor. E
The quality of these screens is amazing.
o que é que isto prejudica o arrefecimento do próprio dissipador dele?
And I thought that's pretty neat, pretty cool, especially if your PC is on display. So, yeah, the Stage will be available.
E o que me interessa é a bomba funcione como deve ser, seja silenciosa,
Marvel superhero type.
não é estas luzinhas, mas enfim.
He'll have fun with it for sure. And my daughter Zoe's probably going to want one now because I think she likes this sort of stuff. Oh, and look, Balin, if I can direct you this way a little bit, you're into music and all that sort of stuff. You could create a little rock band thing on your Stage. So that's some very, very mini figs. Balin likes it. He's probably going to go for that one. And because high quality LCD screens are in Trix's DNA, they did want to create an air cooler. But air coolers don't typically let
Este air cooler,
LCD screens, but of course they found a way to make it happen. So there's a black and a white version, pretty much like all the
meu
other
Deus,
LCD screen that you can play different effects on videos, display pictures, whatever it is.
resta saber é quanto é que custa por ter aquilo, não é?
Air-cooled, giant tower style cooler. This is an all-white model, so the heatsink.
Isto é mais uma marca que pouco se fala por cá.
And the same applies to the black version, so it's basically fully powder coated, I imagine. So don't know about the performance or anything. And by the way, the Stage, the Tourist, these are all products that will be coming to market. So they're not prototypes that we'll never ever see. I've been told these will be coming later in the year, probably an August release for all the products we're showing you here that aren't yet on the market. They're targeting August timeframe. So if you want a great big air cooler,
Estes devem chegar lá para agosto.
people who test that sort of stuff, and
Era interessante saber já assim, preview do preço.
Trix's DNA, and they do like a curved LCD.
Isto numa caixa ainda aceito.
As I can tell. Now,
Ainda aceito.
on the Stage cooler, the classic panorama, we just have a look at the RGB fans, which you need an LCD screen to use those, so I guess that counts. But they have cases, a few different cases, and this particular model is called the Arc Vision. Why the Arc Vision? Well, it has a screen, and that makes sense. So there are two versions, one with the curved LCD. It's basically the screen you get on the panorama coolers. I think it's probably the exact same screen. They've found a way to integrate that into your case. It's pretty neat, pretty cool. It definitely adds something extra to this case, but you can buy it without the screen. I think it's going to be about $120. And of course, the feature of this case is the curved glass. I believe that's a first for Trix. And that's, the what would you call it, Balin? Like the fish tank type look. Very popular at the moment. So
Aquele que dissesse o preço das duas opções.
screen at the bottom. Yeah, this configuration, I think they're aiming for about $230 US. without the screen.
$230.
Various different panels you can use here for the front of the case to give it a different look. So this is a wood. I don't think they're going with this particular shiny one. It's just a prototype here to give examples that there can be different things here that go on the cases to give it a bit of a different look if you haven't ponied up the extra dollars for the LCD screen. And come on, this is the version you want. You want the screen, right? And if you really want to maximize all your curved screen goodness, of course you can have the Arc Vision paired with the
Esta opção é menos chocante que aquela ali.
LCD screen, Balin, within your case? I think, yeah, Balin agrees. And just lastly, we have the new Flover case. Now this is it's a pre-production, not a prototype, it is something they want to bring to market. And at the moment they're displaying it in a pink color, which I think, Zoe would like, and probably Balin. I'm probably more after the white one, and there is a black version back here as well. Few unique things about this particular case. So first of all, the panel down the bottom here at the front, they are sort of...
Esta está em fase de pré-produção.
It does remind me of a lot of the Bluetooth speakers I've seen. So yeah, really unique look that I think would work well.
Para escritório, por exemplo, este tipo de caixa.
Yeah, very unique.
Acho que...
Unique elements. So one of the
este aqui também mostrei no outro dia, que é a ventoinha está ali do lado.
It's not, and airflow does.
Quero ver se o Gamers Next vai mostrar.
Enhance the case's airflow.
Está aqui.
I think most people would go with that
O
installed.
sistema está espetacular.
I'm not exactly sure what you call this fan, but it looks like something off the back of a combine harvester. I think it's how a lot of
Acho que vai ser o futuro.
work, the indoor head units. But it's basically a long series of fins in a cylinder, and trikes say it
É isto.
and generates more airflow than three 120mm fans. So it doesn't really matter.
Se isso for verdade,
This fan here, it comes with the case. We'll have a look at it in a moment, and it will exhaust a lot of air out of the case. It also
não, isto é espetacular. Diz que isto faz o mesmo flow de 3
of course meant intake
120.
front of the case. So I think this one's probably upside down actually. It would go like that in the case. So the air's coming out the side here, blowing across the graphics card and into the side of your air cooler. So pretty
Eu gostei muito disto.
loud on the showroom floor. I cannot hear that thing at all, so I can't really comment. I think they said it was something like 32 decibels, so very quiet. Anyway, a very cool, unique aspect of this case, and yeah, available in 3 colors. Should be on the market later in the year. I don't have pricing information or anything like that. But
Pois, isso é que era interessante.
how unique the case looks. And yeah. I'll actually pull this out to give you guys a better look of it. Apparently the final production version will have like a dust filter here as well, though I imagine this is going to act as a dust filter. And I know there'll be some cleaning concerns and stuff like that from people. I think as long as you're not smoking, so for non-smokers it shouldn't be an issue. You'll just get the usual dust build up here, which if you had a vacuum with like a brush head, that would come off straight away.
É mais outra daquelas marcas que não têm chegado por cá.
Finally, a big thank you to G-Skill and Trikes for helping
Ok.
make the COMPUTEX trip possible this year. G-Skill offers an
Prontos, parte do fim.
processor, and we've been using their Trident Z.
Okay.
360 Black is one of the
Estão a ver este?
I've ever seen. The quality of the
Vamos ver.
is incredible, and as complex as the design appears, it's remarkably quick and easy to install. So for more information, please check the links in the video description.
Vamos ver.
And I'm going to sit back down and relax for a few minutes before we move on to our next booth tour.
Vamos ver o que é que isto vai trazer em termos também de preço, não é?
You're going to do a wellness check on Noctua because they have a liquid cooler. So far, no RGB LEDs to be found. So
Não
things
era a diferença.
somewhat under control. They can keep the least RGB bullshit at a trade show award that I've
A hora não é mais.
for at least one more trade show. This is a liquid cooler. We already talked about this, but they have basically some 3D printed and prototype pieces here that are all intended to go into the pump blocks to reduce some of the most annoying aspect of liquid coolers with pumps, as opposed to thermosiphons, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. This is obviously a Noctua fan, so this is an existing fan that they've reshaped the frame for, and it's optional to mount on top. It projects the air out towards the VRM components. You hit the memory as well. The
Tem,
thermosiphon we're gonna
tem sentido, mas é feio.
This was briefly shown last year. They are now further along in development. It is a 2-phase thermosiphon, meaning that it does a phase change, and so in some ways it's comparable to a heat pipe. And over here, there are a bunch of
Tinha ainda minuto.
cold plates ranging from
Tinha produto
process to
terminado.
up in the thermosiphon. And I am here to ask about why, because I'm sure there's science. I'm positive there's science I don't understand and this is part of it. So I would like to learn more about that, and Jacob Dellinger from Nox will be joining us to talk about it. The Antec case, we talked about the case already.
Esta caixa da Antec.
Nox got some performance numbers that are pretty interesting. So acoustic directivity, this is actually a really cool test that I'm interested in, where they put this on a turntable, so like Lazy Susan type test, shoot the mic at it and get noise from different angles and measure the impact of the noise on the microphone as the case rotates. And it's kind of cool stuff. I like it. Something that we could do without crazy amounts of extra testing. So
Vamos ver quando testares em termos da caixa
this we'll talk about a little bit as well.
para escritórios,
And then over here,
não é para o utilizador doméstico. E essa vai ser cara,
which also appears shroud top,
das razões
which is the case that we showed
destas ventoinhas serem caras,
informally announced.
estejam na Acto,
They have some numbers.
na Octo, a
Got a lot to talk
COMPUTEX.
about Noctua today. And we don't cover mice, but there is one here, and it does have a fan in it.
Valha-me Deus.
Before that, this video is brought to you by Lian Lee.
Passa à frente, já sabem, vejam depois o vídeo dele.
One of them is that the RPM offset
Okay.
is a little different. So on the NHD15G2, when we reviewed that, the RPM offset between the two fans, as a reminder, Noctua intentionally offsets the RPM between the fans by 25, right? Plus minus 25 on the D15G2. So this one, it's plus minus 50 instead. The stuff I wanted to just briefly go over is some of their first-party test data. So if we do anything with this fan, we'll produce our own. But just for what Noctua was saying, so on a 200-watt heat load with a
O Emas Nexus tem
20 radiator,
estúdio espetacular para testar as caixas.
they have the
É
original
isso que depois vamos ver.
5 at 40.2 degrees delta T over ambient, and then the G2 at 36.7 delta T over ambient. And 3 degrees, or plus or minus, is really damn good, honestly, for a cooler. There is kind of a range where you'll see more or less. So especially as the heat load comes down in a lot of our testing, you start to see the performance of the higher end stuff matter less. It depends on where it falls. The air cooler here, so this is call it a 1 degree difference between the 200 watt heat load noise normalized on the U12A. And I just want to point out that the scale of 30.
Estou à espera que me deem.
This is
A
what
malta que vem falar,
this is an NVIDIA chart scale.
andam sem fazer nada no YouTube
On an air cooler is a
e
lot
depois descobrem,
different. You tend to see top to bottom on
perdem um bocado de tempo
for this we're looking at
para colocar os nomes nos grupos, só para depois andarem a chatearem os outros. É, os famosos bots,
now let's jump over to the liquid cooler. Okay, so for the liquid cooler,
e que não fazem nada.
Nox was working with Ace Attack. We'll start with that. So they're using the Ace Attack Jet
Fantástico,
platform. Ace
fantástico.
Attack has been around a long time.
Ser mais um dos miúdos.
In the old days, they're known for Corsair, NZXT, EVJ. They made basically everything.
Esta é feia, este cooler.
And the comment, actually, we were talking earlier, so this Jacob,
Mas pelo menos não tem aquelas brincadeiras
where Ace Attack for
dos visores,
over the years,
nem os RGBs.
in my experience, have had fewer very widespread failures of gunk buildup specifically. So for all the other comments aside,
Mas é que está. O que interessa é que o I.O. funcione como deve ser.
flush the radiator, what materials are
Tenha a tal situação daquela porcaria que vai ganhando durante o uso.
unique challenge of trading basically solely on quality. And so you can't have a thing that has a reliability issue.
O problema é que isto só ao fim de um ano ou dois é que se começa a ver
The mass damper,
os problemas.
touch on the acoustics and the profile.
Yes, absolutely. So as you've said, we've taken Acetec's existing MRV2 platform because from our perspective,
Estou à espera que o Elliot de SAD me sugira um trabalho pago por ele.
is the fans
Pode ser que ele ofereça alguma coisa de jeito.
that helps to reduce both vibrations and noise. The working principle behind it is twofold. On the soundproofing level, we use a 3-layer acoustic foam. So we have two, they are shown in black here, two open pore soft acoustic foam layers and a dense mass barrier in between.
Será que isto funciona?
Help to target high frequency noise, and the mass barrier in between helps to target lower frequency noise. The second thing that the acoustic foam does, it is
Não acredito.
the hard plastic shell outer cover from a vibration point of view. So it makes sure that no vibrations can be transmitted to that outer cover. The second
É, porque realmente é um dos calcanhar daqueles das bombas nos IOs, é aquela vibração que causa a bomba. Isso também.
the acoustic foam structure. And that actually is the working
Agora, se isso não vai gerar aquecimento, um extra,
multiple mass nodes to
que gostava de ver.
object through springs and dampers, and that's exactly what we do here. We have two mass nodes with the dense acoustic barrier and the outer cover shell, and the acoustic foam, the soft acoustic foam, and silicon inserts act as the springs or dampers in our system.
And we should point out too, so this is not actually what they're using. This is just to show the makeup of it. And from what I understand, you're planning to use a sort of a spongy material for at least the soft foam. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. This is just a 3D.
E não vai ser bem assim.
Now we don't want to give away the exact foam with
Ah,
now. We're talking a Q1 release date, so we don't want to give the competition ahead.
é isso que a gente gostava de ver.
Plans now for specialized changes to the radiators. Not doing anything to tune the thickness, the fin density, anything like that.
At this stage, for our very first AIOs, we're really taking the existing Aztec MIV2 platform,
Eles podem fazer a pump também da cor das ventoinhas.
playing with the radiators, definitely. Radiators, definitely.
Também há um radiador para placas gráficas que é com esse mesmo padrão.
The shroud or the pump block top fan. It's an existing 80 mil Noctua fan, I guess. You've shaped the outside. How close to final is this frame?
I mean, this is again 3D printed for the show. From a design point of view, I think there's only a little bit of fine tuning left to do, but the basic design with the frame curved outwards to utilize the Coanda effect to draw more air towards the sides, and also the ribs on the cover itself that help to convert rotational.
Mas fica feio, pá.
You're talking about these right here?
Yeah, exactly. They work in the same way as the airflow amplification system that we use with our desk fan, converting the helix structure of the wake flow into straight kinetic energy, just on a, of course, more microscopic level than we can do with that big funnel.
I mean, realistically, not to get into like actual performance numbers, because I know it's too early to have them, but realistically, how much does this type of thing impact the performance ultimately? And if you need to draw on existing fan knowledge,
Assim, é estético.
like if having a ridge structure versus not, is this a situation of, well, we chase every microscopic improvement we can get because they all add up, or is it like one where it's, no, this is a big deal?
No, honestly, frankly speaking, this is micro level tuning, not more than that. I'm not going to push it into telling you that this is going to make a huge difference. It just doesn't. So just,
É lá, pelo menos é honesto.
but that's it.
Cool. All right. So you have ETA Q1 2026 here. Pricing.
Só para 2026.
Pricing too early,
Primeiro quadrimestre de 2026.
still up in the air, I would say.
Okay. Anything else you want to go over with this before we move to the thermosiphon?
I would say we should speak a little bit about
Acho um bocado estranho.
we're getting from all that tuning work. We
2025 virem mostrar isto, só sai em 2026.
here is isolated pump acoustic test. So that's with the pump suspended on rubber bands, and we're measuring pump noise only. And that means that if you have your pump installed in the system, there can be different results because you have vibration pathways through the motherboard. We cannot predict how your motherboard will resonate on your motherboard tray, things like that. So the improvements you see here look great. Don't get me wrong, we're very happy with them, but it's important to caveat that real-world results in fully assembled systems can be different. So with that out of the way, we're seeing an average 5.7 dBA reduction with our pump cover versus a pump without cover. And that's an important thing to mention, because one thing that we found in our testing is that a lot of the covers out there actually increase noise rather than decrease it compared to the naked pump, so to say.
We were talking about screens, right? So the big screens that everyone puts on the liquid coolers now, I was telling Jacob that an interesting test for us might be if we do a more micro level test looking at, does the screen influence the general acoustics, especially in a case or something, where you might have reflections with a huge screen on top of a pump block or something. The impression I'm getting is that a lot of the engineering focus is going on to specifically acoustics, I guess.
Yes, 100%. So
É, isso é o que eu quero ver depois.
simple, right? But unless you do
É acústica.
basically adjusting the mass, the spring stiffness, the dampening coefficients, and the oscillation frequency of all the individual parts, you can end up with making things worse rather than actually.
Teoria toda bonita, né? Mas depois na prática é o que nós costumamos ver.
Went into exactly that tuning procedure to make sure that we really get the noise levels.
Mas a Noctua não são pessoas de falharem muito.
Okay. Thermosiphon?
Yes, please.
Question mark? Okay. So this is the two-phase thermosiphon. Last year you guys showed something. I don't remember how close it was to this, but from what I recall, it was not very. This is pretty far along compared to that. First questions are the top level ones. So starting with, let's just do the basics. Is there an ETA? Is there a price target yet? Is there a performance target? And then we'll get into WTF is a thermosiphon.
Mas eu acho que fica feio.
From the bottom, there is a performance target that remains unchanged from last year, and that is providing the same performance level, noise normalized, of course, as good all-in-one water coolers at the same form factor. Pricing, no, way too early.
Não sabe preços.
Still too early. I can say that we have made very good progress throughout last year. Last year we had a non-working demo on display. Now we have a functional demo that's actually working on a 9800X 3D, looping a game. So it's doing its work, but it will require more fine-tuning to get the performance to the level we target and to get the performance as consistent as we need it to be.
Okay, and then thermosiphon. So correct me if I get anything wrong here before I hand it off to you, but my understanding of the principle is some of this can be thought of as at least a two-phase, similar
Lá
to
está, isto não vai caber em qualquer caixa.
an evaporator, a condenser type of cycle that's going on. And so as it evaporates at whatever the heat source is, turns into a vapor, goes up through, recondenses, comes down as a liquid, and does all of this in a pumpless fashion. There's no mechanical or electrical component to do the pumping of the liquid. And so there's no reliability component from the pump standpoint. Maybe from the liquid, well, definitely from the liquid itself, permeation's maybe a topic. But you're eliminating the pump itself. How else do you want to break down like a thermosiphon at a top level?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell,
Isto sem bomba
entirely relies
não vai causar ruído
to circulate
espetacular.
and
É,
thermosiphon has a phase change.
posição da caixa, não sabemos, eles ainda não falaram.
We're evaporating a fluid,
Pois,
condensing it back to make
mas acho que isto vai ser caro.
the beauty of all
Vai ser mais caro do que o IO tradicional,
because
deve ser sempre acima dos 300 euros.
through with the all-in-one water coolers to bring pump noise down just don't exist because there is no pump that could possibly make noise, and that also means that there's no pump that could vibrate and no pump that could possibly fail. So the only lifetime limiting factors are indeed permeation or potentially the buildup of non-compressible gases inside the system.
Is the bubbling something that you're going to acoustically target? Is it a feature? Is it it's a water feature that has a calming element to it? Yeah, like, I mean, genuinely, I know this is, I'm sure, extremely quiet. Does it make any noise at all that you would want to try and filter out, or is it just not an issue?
So I literally stuck my ear into this. I got stuck in between the graphics card and the condenser almost, back home in a quiet lab environment.
Não sei se consegues caber ali.
But this is something you would not be able to hear from
Isso
outside.
é fantástico.
This is also something that we are quite confident we can still further improve throughout the development process.
The fans are louder anyway, I'm sure, in the rest of the system. So, all right, so let's go through. I don't know where you want to start. The what was it? Boiling crisis? Is that where?
boiling crisis.
Maybe that's a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can explain a little bit why we're not at performance target yet. As I've mentioned to you before, we could have gone out here and just shown you that, yay, we reached our performance target by demoing a unit on a heater dummy where we have uniform heat distribution on the heating element. We're actually making the target there, but we still have some trouble on real-world CPUs that have hotspot-centric heat loads. And to explain why this is the case, we should look a little bit at this boiling curve that basically helps to explain the thermodynamics background of all this. Boiling is not just boiling, but there are different phases to it, or boiling regimes to it. So once you start to increase temperature, this graph here plots excess temperature versus heat flux. Excess temperature...
Isto é a tecnologia deste sistema.
So in case of water,
Não esquecer mais uma vez, este sistema não leva a ventoinha bomba para fazer circular a água, ok? É apenas a questão física deste líquido
mixes and
com a temperatura.
but you don't have any nucleation or bubble formation yet. And then once you go beyond that 5-degree excess temperature threshold, you enter the phase of nucleate boiling. So you will have the first isolated nucleation sites from where bubbles will start rising. And then the more you increase the temperature, the more bubbles you will have rising, the bigger the bubbles will get, and the more they will start to merge, to interact, and the more violent the entire...
Isso vai ser interessante.
I think everyone has seen it when watching a pot of water boiling. And the interesting thing from a thermal engineering point of view is that for any fluid, the heat transfer capabilities are much better in the liquid phase than in the vapor phase. And that means that the more vapor we have inside the pot, the lower the overall heat transfer possibilities or capabilities will get. And that's why from this inflection point onwards, where we start seeing proper jets and columns shooting up rather than just isolated bubbles, we will slowly see the heat flux curve flatten. And then at this point of critical heat
E
flux,
depois ali passa para a água fresca.
we
Fresca, entre aspas.
curve actually going down sharply. And by sharply, I mean extremely sharply, because this is a logarithmic scaling on the x-axis. And the reason why this is happening is because once you enter the phase of transition boiling, you will have vapor pockets accumulating on the hot surface and effectively insulating the surface from a thermal perspective from the liquid above. And this makes the curve drop all the way down to the so-called Leidenfrost point, at which the film boiling phase starts. And in this phase, you'll actually have a full vapor film covering the surface and shielding it from the liquid above. This phase is also called dry out because at this stage, you have no more liquid actually touching the hot surface. Some of you may have seen the phenomenon that when you drop...
Passar à frente porque isto ainda está em fase muito embrionária.
So for AMD, it's on the
Vai trazer para a M5, para o processador da Intel. Isso é,
high risk of
acho muito bom.
towards that point of critical heat flux. And this is the reason why we're still not there performance-wise. And the
E
long
agora está espetacular, não é?
over the last year was spent investigating different approaches
Possible without impeding the flow too much.
with a system like the typical pump, let's say through a chat plate into a fine microfin structure. And secondly, we would have the risk of
Passar à frente.
Which is, it achieves similar things to
É
it.
aquilo na caixa não vai caber.
What is it your numbers are showing? You're comparing, I guess, the original Antec Flux Pro with its 6 stock fans versus the Noctua one, which is the 2 120 G2s, and then the remainder 4 are 140 G2s.
yeah, so it's a one-to-one fan replacement, I would say, with a 3 140 in the front, 1 in the back, and 2 on the bottom intake. So it's really an apples-to-apples comparison, I would say. Yeah, we did a lot of acoustic directivity testing, so we measuring from a single
2026, primeiro quadrimestre.
acoustic improvement, actually
Vamos ver.
that we're just driving more flow through the system and thereby also creating more
Vamos seguir para a frente. Ele já. Temos aqui muita conversa.
more frequencies inside the system.
Okay, that makes sense. I can't just at least pointing this out. Showing, you're comparing, I guess, the original Antec Flux.
Welcome to the COMPUTEX.
Agora, vamos ao nosso amigo TechS City. Vai trazer também aqui outros
25 booth for Cooler Master. Well, it's actually their headquarters.
Cooler Master.
Something really interesting here
É que eles vão trazer.
in July, or at least so I'm told from
Olha,
Way, who is going to explain
chega em julho.
about this new heat pipe technology as well as having thicker heat pipes.
So this is the traditional heat pipe. So traditional heat pipe, you'll see a U-shaped heat pipe. So what it does is obviously dissipating the heat on the bottom, transfer the heat to the top, and then transfer the cold air back down and continue the circle, right? So you can see the whole middle fin stack has no heat to it, right? So you're not utilizing the entire fin stack here. So what's the difference between 3T heat pipe is that we added additional heat pipe in the middle, a little bit to the right. So what it does is that allow additional heat to travel through the middle part to allow it to dissipate the heat.
Será?
So what we also did different is that the outer heat
Então só descobriram isso agora? Um bocado estranho, não é?
6 millimeter. So what it does is that you allow the hot air escape to the outside first, because when the fan is spinning, the air is actually to the outside. But at the same time, the middle heat pipe allow the water to travel up and down faster, so they create the evaporation, allow it to dissipate a lot faster to the outside as well. So you use the fan evenly to.
E quanto é que vai custar aquele cooler?
So now with these heat pipes, I was looking at the demo earlier before, you were also saying on top of the additional heat pipe in the middle here, there was something about Cooler Master's heat pipes now being thicker.
Yeah, so the outside heat pipe is actually 8 millimeter heat pipe. And then the middle one is the traditional 6 millimeter heat pipe. So what it does is allow the heat pipe to travel, allow the heat to go out from the outer heat pipe first. So
Teoricamente,
it's dissipating, so that when the fans blow
deverá ser mais eficiente. Teoricamente.
faster, and the middle heat pipe acts as a water flow, so it does trap the heat up, but then
Teoricamente.
a lot faster, so it continues to create that vapor and the evaporation to allow the heat keep on going back up.
So basically what you're saying is with these coolers that you're introducing over here, I better see Cooler Master air coolers hitting the top of the charts when it comes to the lowest temperatures, right?
Yes.
You're pretty confident you'll get there?
Yes, we're pretty.
Vamos ver, vamos ver.
I'm looking forward to seeing that, but let's go through some of these models then. With the V4 core, is this going to be the entry level for this new heat pipe technology? Or?
Esteticamente é
It's going to be our entry level.
sem problema nenhum.
For ARGB, just utilizing ARGB fan. So the price is going to be the same, $29.99 MSRP on the both.
Olha, 29.
Buying a standard one or one was light, the pricing is the same at $29.99, and that's
Não é mau.
because we know there's tariff in the US, so it's pre-tariff cost.
And also with the RGB, do you get a controller included? Or?
Yes, so you can control it with your motherboard.
Este duas ventoinhas.
I mean like an actual extra
Yes.
additional controller.
Yeah, so we-
5 volt?
Yes.
SATA?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now these are going to be the bigger ones, yeah? These will be the high performance ones, the
Yes.
V8s?
So V4 Alpha is the same cooler over there, except with two fans, single tower. So for the MSRP with this model, it will be $39.99. So just $10 higher than the previous model with the additional fan, additional design on the top. And then the VAS, it's gonna be at $69.99. So it has
69.
so the performance of a 430 heat pipe is equivalent to 8 standard heat pipes.
Isto já é calhão.
Big talk here at Cooler Master. Now, when are these exactly going to be released? Do you know the release date?
So the actual release date for the model for over here will mass production in July, so it will be launching in
Julho,
August. So for this model should be Q4, but I don't
para
have
agosto.
it yet. But for the VAS, it's gonna be in Q4.
So this is going to be your best air cooler on the market.
Yes, that's correct.
But we won't find out till Q4 with their flagship whether it is going to top.
Eu não sei se ele gostou que ele tivesse tirado a plástico.
The fact that they got the thermo imaging camera on, even just the V4 earlier, I was noticing it was running real cool. Like it's nowhere near 14 degrees in this place right now. I'd say like ambient wise, it's around 22 or something like that. But this thing was like, it doesn't have any heat coming from it, but it was cooling really well. Like you just feel that this thing's actually going to do a really good job when it gets on those CPUs. So really looking forward to this stuff. Let's go through some of the other stuff Cooler Master have here at their booth. At
Então, coisas mais terra a terra.
2025 was brought to you by VIP.
Vamos ver para a frente.
This one really caught my eye. This is the latest Cosmos 2025.
Esta caixa
Tell us what you can probably already see with this case, something that's very different, and that is just separating the GPU cooling and the CPU cooling into separate baffles. But I'll let you also let Wei explain what makes the Cosmos a really unique case.
Sure, no problem. So for Cosmos, you guys can see, like as Brian mentioned,
se é uma caixa
to separate the heat from CPU and GPU. And we know that GPU create a lot of heat and noises, so we want to separate them. And then we have two 180mm fans in the front to push the air back. And then you can install two additional fans in the back to pull the air out. So create that air tunnel inside the chassis to help you to dissipate the heat a lot faster and efficient and keep your CPU and GPU cool.
Okay, so with support, like, is it going to be EATX?
Yes, so you can support up to
esta vai ser grande.
And then you can support ATX, obviously, MATX, Mini ATX, anything you name it, we can do it. Also, you see a lot of different rolling systems, so you can actually adjust the system like our previous Cosmos. You can do inward layout or backward layouts, different kind of layout you wanted to do. And then so you can adjust the system to your liking as well.
And what about radiator support in terms of water cooling?
I know that you can support the 360 and 360 in the front and top as well.
Mas não gosto.
Right now, it has two 180mm fans in the front, so it's already have a really strong.
Caixa muito tradicionalista.
On the front end, okay. And here's where it does get a little bit sticky though. The price is set to be around 399 USD. So this is going to be one expensive puppy
$299.
if you like this design. Now, one thing about the Cosmos, and I can tell you right now, these cases are heavy. Cooler Master is sticking with that, what would you call it, hernia-making design. Because in the past, the Cosmos, I think, was probably one of the heaviest cases I've lifted personally. This thing is sticking true to that design. If you like something that is built for a nuclear fallout, this case is probably...
Para escritórios, acho que
But let's continue on now. Look at some of the other...
mesmo grandes.
that are coming in 2025. But in terms of a release date for this one, when can people expect this to be
We
out?
expect to be out on the market by September timeframe. So that's
Setembro. Setembro deste ano.
And that $399, is that pre-tariff?
yeah, it's all pre-tariff. So every pricing we mentioned will be pre-tariff.
Okay. So also with the tariffs, when it comes to the tariffs, Montech, for instance, we were talking to Montech,
Yeah.
and they were saying, look, the tariffs ain't really going to affect us.
That I don't know how. So unless they're manufacturing outside of China, then sure. Because we have our own factory. So we manufacture in China, there's nothing we can do.
Oh, so
Unlike other brands, they might not be manufacturing themselves. If they're manufacturing
É. A fabricação de material informático
produce case,
com tarifas que os Estados Unidos e a China têm.
that's my guess. I don't know. I don't work for them, so I wouldn't know.
Okay, that's a bit of insight that I didn't know previously, but there you go. Because when I was speaking to them, they were very confident in their prices that they weren't going to be tariffed. So now, just when you think you've seen it all in the world,
Estas caixas já têm piada.
360-degree panoramic. And to be fair, it's apparently it's going to come in from $299.
Yes. So the price will be at $299.
É caixote.
That's the master frame that we have.
299.
360 panoramic.
Não é barato.
And you're using a customized water cooling loop. So we will be selling this case at $299.
And when's this set for release?
So we want to release this in September as well.
Okay, so this
Vem para setembro.
design's coming from Cooler Master here. And just looking at this thing, it's like, wow, you really have to be good with your cable management. Me personally, I always like, as soon as I'm done with the build at the rear, the cables are like a jungle sandwich. I'm just quick to chuck on that black panel on the back and just call it a day. So if you're really petite about your build, not just on the front, but also at the back.
É, isto vai ser preciso espaço grande.
So as we're going through these cases,
Já são caixas mais
and then I'm hearing $50.
tradicionais.
What I see. So this is the Cooler Master.
$50, portanto 50 euros, $50. É bem bom.
25, and this is coming in with, again, that price point of $50. Microwave.
É,
Now, one thing is you don't get.
isto é micro ATX.
This is just the case, but
Sem ventoinhas.
singular curved glass piece at $50. That's actually pretty impressive. Now moving on here, if you want a bit of a bigger size with that ATX support,
Um ATX.
and that's coming in from $65. But then going on beside that, we're moving back down to $50. And this is the Elite 490. So this is micro ATX support, but you'll notice this has just got more of that simple
Esta já é mais tradicionalistas, mas mesmo assim está
outputs here. Two,
bem trabalhada.
also a headphone mic jack, a Type-C too, which Type-C on a $50 case is pretty impressive. So
É, $50.
cases will actually hit the market at $50. And when can we
Não,
check these out?
não acredito.
Most of this case should be out around September timeframe as well.
Setembro também.
You know, it's also pre-tariff as well. So all the prices you look at is pre-tariff. So we're hoping the tariff goes away soon.
Hoping the tariffs go away soon, but ultimately, it's a weird thing where you're hearing this, it's up in the air. So I guess that's why they probably need the extra time to release these to the market at the moment. There's a little bit of a
E agora aquele caixotão aí ao lado.
obviously the US is a huge customer base for custom enthusiast desktop PCs, but let's move on with these other two cases here. What are we talking about? The Elite 692 ATX support. It looks like it's the bigger brother of the Elite 490. And this one here,
Aquela outra tem 4 ventoinhas. Poxa.
This is a fully tempered glass, so similar style, but except instead of using wood, it's a fully tempered glass, and then with a touch of finish, and then the I/O is actually in the bottom instead of having a separate chamber of ventilation in the bottom.
Cuidado com isso.
This is cost around $60.
$60.
Yeah.
Pá,
$60.
bom preço.
I mean, I'm going to be putting Cooler Master to their word here because they're saying these prices actually hit this at $60. Like, come on, that's actually legit impressive.
Vamos ver.
Thing here, this looks like it's a
So this is the
full
big,
tower.
yeah. So bigger brother of the 692. This is the 693. The cost of this will be at $70. So
$70. Vá.
Like blown away by these initial pricing figures here. You guys have got some big hype to live up to. We got those coolers promising to top the charts. Now we got these cases promising to coming in at these prices.
ED302 and ED502, so obviously small.
Estas já também estão muito engraçadas.
So you have this mesh finish in the front. The smaller ones are $40. The larger
$40,
it does
60, poça.
so it comes 3 RGB fans in the front for both of these cases. So $40 case was 3 RGB fans. $60 case was 3 RGB fans.
Right, again, adding on to the hype.
Okay, bem bom.
Master in that game of Texas Hold'em, they pulled down the ace. Second,
Vamos ver.
or is it another ace to make the pocket ace? That's what the situation is right now with Cooler Master. It really is. I don't think I've seen this kind of situation from a booth before, but they're holding that other card. We're going to see what they got.
Se eles mantiverem esses preços,
Coming over here, we've got some interesting designs on fans, right? They're telling me these are all aluminum chassis as well as an all aluminum blade. Now, they've got a protective box on these things for a reason, but I was like, look, can I just put a card on this thing and like test out the wears here? And it's like, man, that's like pretty, that's just chopping up this card. I don't want that to be my finger.
isto vai dar problemas.
We're
Isto é.
3,000 RPM before, and there was a button on this thing to change it over to 4,000 RPM. So we're just gonna like redo this demo now with 4,000 RPM. Oh yeah, that's really kicking the card.
Ia estragar o cartão da Rock. Isto vai causar problemas.
All right, guys, and that about wraps it up for Cooler Master here at 2025 COMPUTEX. If you guys have any questions or comments about anything you've seen here today,
Placas gráficas da Cool Master.
I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And with that aside, guys, we'll catch you in another tech video very soon. But do let us know your favorite product.
São gráficas já ligeiramente alteradas.
I'm going to say that V8 air cooler, I think that really impressed me. I'm really looking forward to seeing if it can actually make a dent in the CPU cooling realm. Because we've
Bem,
always
gostei.
cooling dominance and air
Mas isto também não é para qualquer pessoa.
I'm hoping they can get closer to water cooling
Estes já são mais
and make it so that you can just put
normais, entre aspas.
and just be really confident in them at $70, right? So I'm really hopeful for that one personally, but I'd love reading your thoughts and opinions as always. But that aside, I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon.
Ora bem, vejam o vídeo do nosso amigo. Já sabem, Tech City, sempre muito, muito bom.
Welcome to the COMPUTEX 2000.
Este já tínhamos visto, ok.
So
Por
V1
aqui
Alpha
é
is
o mesmo, eu acabo a repetir.
We have
Games Nexus.
about that to answer some of the questions where the headline was basically about the European branch closing. So I talked to them about that. We'll cover that today. In terms of products, we're going to go over. They have a liquid cooler that they're experimenting with. To my knowledge, this is Scythe's first liquid cooler.
Mais uns coolers.
Telling us how he basically spent the last year specifically studying liquid coolers. And so this is what he's come up with for a first mock-up, where one of the things I want to do is include these. Currently, these are 3D printed prototypes. Basically, I don't know, a peg, I guess, with a piece of tape on the back. And so then you can stick that to any fan you want. And we'll have to drop B-roll on it because I'm using a mic here. But that can then socket on top of the cooler here. It can be angled slightly because it is just like a peg inside.
Oh, vai, meu Deus, isso.
And the idea being that you can point a bunch more air down at the VRM or the RAM or whatever. You can technically use, I mean, if you have room for it.
Tá certo.
Might be a little wobbly, but that's what they're playing around with the liquid coolers. The air coolers, there's not a ton new except for, so the Magaroku, which we showed last year, is coming out now. So this is just about done. That's supposed to be $50, but they might be able to bring it down, they're saying, to $44 US, depending on sort of market conditions. And then the Mugen 6 Tough, which is an Asus sort of color-themed and branded version of the Mugen 6. And that will start us off for Scythe. Oh, and they also have the Big Shuriken 4, which we showed last year, but is now just about final as well. And this one has the cutouts in the side of the fan, which they say helps performance. And we talked about that last year, would allow some room for the fan, for the air to escape out of there. So let's get into it. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermalright
Ok,
and
vamos passar para a frente também.
Thermalright's Frozen Prism, AMD and Intel. We previously benchmarked the Frozen Prism and found that its overall liquid cooler we've tested anytime recently that still hits performance markers. Learn more.
Este já gosto. Thermalright.
This is supposed to be a relatively high-performing, sort of mid-range budget-ish cooler at that, like I said, $44 point.
Magoroku.
Flat nickel-plated copper cold plate. It's 6 heat pipes, so there's 6 mil pipes.
Oh, este tem muito. Jet pipes.
So These are 25 mil thick fans. They're 2x120s for these, and otherwise pretty familiar cooler. I mean, you use the metal brackets to adjust the fan height. There's nothing really too crazy about how it's put together.
Yeah.
For the prototype here, so this is actually pretty interesting. If you look closely at those heat pipes, you'll see those have like basically zero distance between them at the bottom. They kind of converge into one just basically a plate, but it's still direct touch heat pipes. And so there's a couple ways to do heat pipes where you could either form a plate around them, which normally just looks like a flat nickel-plated copper plate, or they could do direct touch. Normally with direct touch, though, you'll still see a gap form between the base where it might be like a fraction of a millimeter, but it'll be a
Espero bem que eles não falhem.
and then the paste helps fill that. So by polishing this down, they are chewing into some of the heat pipe area to get them all uniform and getting them to minimize the gap between them, which should improve the thermal performance in theory. Now, one of the things Sisal is telling us is that apparently this is a little bit cheaper from a manufacturing standpoint and also therefore should help them fight on price with companies like Thermalright, which is causing everybody problems right now, which I guess is good for consumers because it drives price down, but allows them to fight on price a little better versus doing something like a nickel-plated copper cold plate where there's a lot more process involved, there's more factories involved to do that plating, and so it's supposed to simplify things. What they were
Vamos ver estas.
There's too many caps.
É performance.
Otherwise, I'll point you to our
Estes, gosto destes também. Parecem poucos.
all black or ARGB. And I think they will actually read the comments because they've done that in the past. So if you want to leave your comments as to what your preference is, that'll probably help them make a choice. Please don't guide them the wrong direction. I'm trusting all. The working name for this cooler is Psycopter.
Este não gosto, já vos falei ali.
Cover plate. I think if I understood the whole thing, and
Isto não é para qualquer.
you can let me know in the comments.
Só vai dar as geneiras.
So whenever we talk to Scythe, I have a lot of fun because we're going through 3 languages. So
Está a ter que chegar.
So I got a pen, and my question was, Lian Lee says their gap between the bottom of the microfins and the bottom of the cold plate, which is this number here. Lian Lee is big. They're talking big game about 0.3 millimeters for their new cooler. Upside, better performance. Downside, a little more malleable, can be misshapen, and so they're going to have to work on tuning the rigidity and the resilience.
Temos nexos a dar aulas com os gajos.
They're basically closing that branch. I think I would call it restructuring customers in Taiwan. So that is my current understanding of it. I think it's basically a reorg, where it's like for Site's booth. Very interesting.
Vamos ver quando é que isto vem. Vejam o vídeo dele, sabem? Gamers Nexus. Esta também já vimos, ok? Do Gamers Nexus. Agora do Unbox e agora de Bauer.
Hey and welcome back to a new video. Today from the booth of Lian Lee, where I spotted quite interesting AIOs, cases, and also something...
Lian Lee, tem coisas
I'm still waiting for a reply there, and then I will...
muito interessantes. Esta caixa também está muito jeitosa.
How much you can make for that little amount of money. If we just zoom into this...
59 em black, 74. Com fans, 74. Para Lian Lee, sure.
Not sure how anybody is making any money on this, but I think the customer can definitely benefit from it.
Vamos ver se que é que vai fazer as tarifas. Cuidado. Não. Vamos ver. É para 109, setembro de 2025.
8.8 inches.
Ora, com o LCD,
So it's not just
quanto é que custa?
an annoying HDMI display. The famous Dan case is getting the
Não diz.
vertical mode.
Caixa pequena também gosto muito dela. Esta preta gostei.
You have some tiny feet you can...
Mais simplória.
It's exposing the fans. If you mount some fans, obviously, then you will be able to see the fans in front. And it's saying availability in October 2025 for
Outubro.
the Vector V100 will also come in a mini version for only $45, again without fans. And the mini version is for mainly M-ATX cases, but
Esta é interessante.
price performance focused. Well, mainly price focused, obviously. Lian Lee is also more and more invested into doing
Pontos de alimentação.
a lot of different units, also different sizes, different capacities, also for the high-end market. But what I find most interesting is this one with the detachable fan hub that looks like this.
Isto também é uma coisa fora do comum. Para aquelas boards
The thing is, the question,
e para aquelas caixas, vocês vão fazer uma coisa diferente.
because this thing gets power through that connector, which is on here. So you just slide it on,
Fantástico.
and then it has power. You don't have to do anything else. But You can also use this in a the detached mode like this, and then it would get power over the 8 pin. So you don't use both.
Muito bom.
But if you want to use this somewhere else, like location-wise in your system, then you would have to use that 8-pin connector. And then there's also one more that just has a bunch of extra USB power connectors. This is a pretty simple, but I think also brilliant solution to have great visuals, great design, but you're avoiding software. This has two functions. Like you wouldn't see it, but you can twist the top ring and the color. As you see for both,
muda as cores, ou seja, não precisas de software.
by twisting this counterclockwise. If you twist it clockwise, you're changing the LCD screen with some predefined designs. I mean,
Isto é interessante.
not connected over USB and you're running software, then you're limited to just the values that the pump has, which in this case is the water temperature and the pump speed. But I think it's great if you're running a system where you do not want to have
Muito bom.
over software, over USB, and you still get the look of a nice LCD AIO, and it will work without any issues with the software. But if you would want to use software, then you can do what is
Pronto, é isto. É isto que está em moda.
run it over USB, add your images, animations, and
Meu Deus do céu.
over the LCD. And also the LCD in here, the one on top, is the same one that D&D is using in the Vector case, because this LCD is also available.
Mas lá está, o mercado também dita aquilo que os fabricantes querem pôr.
This is the LANCool 217
Esta está espetacular.
version, because it has an infinity mirror in front. They are using glass in front. That means they have to take glass, have
A parte do vidro é que
and then they're adding the fans in front. And I'm a huge fan of that.
estética, mas está muito bom. Só que isto vai ficar tudo sujo com douradas.
It just gives so much more high quality look than, for example, if you just had a simple plastic piece in front. Now here we have another AIO where I'm not quite sure if this is brilliant or just completely useless. We have
Pois,
a 90-degree angle
é o tal.
that
Não, eu
can
não,
move left and right
não gosto.
and up and down. This is exactly what I mean when it's built inside and it's running. I guess it's a prototype. I mean, they would hopefully or obviously hide the mechanism that is sitting in there, because seeing that wouldn't look nice, right? But I mean, what's the point? Is there anybody that actually likes this, or would you buy this?
Não, eu não.
I guess it's also interesting for Lian Li if this is something that people want to see, but yeah. So much from Lian Li. I hope you enjoyed this short video. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Vamos então esperar a partir de julho, já começam a chegar nestas coisas, mas será mais lá para agosto, setembro que vão começar a chegar. Portanto, foi o quarto resumo da COMPUTEX 2025 em Taipei, tá bom? Aguardem-me que ainda tenho para aí mais 2 ou 3, tá bom? Muito obrigado, continuação e